and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Dr. Priscilla Bahaw. I am from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, out of the Faculty of Food and Agriculture. I belong to the Department of Agricultural Economics and Extension, and I am honored to be here today to address you in this forum in this insightful topic. First, let me begin by warmly greeting everyone and welcoming you to our session. Your participation is tremendously appreciated. Now, before we delve into our topic, I'd like to first give you a bit of a background as to what Global Entrepreneurship Week is. Now, GEW is part of the GEN network. It is Global Entrepreneurship Network. I am a member of that network, and every year in the month of November, we celebrate entrepreneurs. In fact, this year alone, there has been 20, over 40,000 events that has attracted approximately 10,000 attendees. And the whole aim of Gen really is to inspire and connect entrepreneurs and really to create an environment where innovation and creativity can flourish. Now, Gen serves as a platform to really promote the vital role that entrepreneurs play. It serves as a platform to showcase their talent and really showcase their vital role as persons who are not just job creators, but those who involve themselves in economic development and societal development. In fact, I was talking to one of my colleagues recently. Her name is Dr. Ambika Mirin from the Seeds Committee. And she is an advocate for NGOs and being able to bring in that entrepreneurial mindset so that these NGOs can become more self sustainable and become more resilient. Now, today we focus our attention on a topic in terms of balancing the complexities. We're looking at the complexities that abound family businesses. Now, family businesses are unique entities in that they blend both personal relationships and professional endeavors. And that in itself can be an opportunity or it can be a challenge. Now, if you look at the Caribbean region, guys, you'd realize that even if you see the businesses that surround you, you'd realize that those businesses make up the SME sector is primarily family businesses. So this tells us that family business is indeed a relevant topic. It should be part of any broader conversation targeted towards economic development and entrepreneurial advancement. But today, we are going to talk about this topic. We're going to delve into this insightful topic, and we are privileged from hearing from two experts sitting here with us. I would like you all to join me in welcoming our distinguished speakers today. We have on set today Mr. Sajjad Hamid and Ms Ria Mankee. Now, let me introduce Sajjad. Sajjad, I've known him for about a decade, and he has worn several hats. I know him as a lecturer at COSTAT, a senior lecturer at COSTAT, but Sajjad also holds the title of a director in the Shogunas Chamber of Industry and Commerce. He owns his consulting and training company, Entrepreneur Central, and Sajjad is known for training and mentoring and coaching SMEs and family businesses, taking them from idea generation straight up to scaling up their businesses to growth. Sajjad also writes a bi-weekly column in the Trinidad and Tobago business newspaper. It's called Entrepreneurship, and he has published over 200 articles in the giving advice for SMEs and family business owners. Sajjad also previously worked as a business development manager for a Fortune 500 company, and he is also the author of his book, Building Your Legacy Business, and we're going to talk about that a bit later on in today's segment. Sajjad also holds extensive qualifications in marketing from the University of Florida. He has an MBA from the University of Reading at the UK. And recently, he graduated with a Master of Science in Business Psychology from Franklin University at the US. So, Sajjad, welcome on set today. It's nice to have you. And also, I would have the honor of introducing Ms Ria Mankee Sookram. She goes by several titles. She's an attorney at law. She's also a family business advisor, a family wealth advisor, a certified mediator, arbitrator, negotiator, trustee, the list goes on. And she's also an author. As you can see, this is her book, and we will hear more about it later on. Now, Ria is a seasoned professional. Her expertise spanned across several domains, including corporate and family trust, estate law. She specializes in family business and wealth management, and she has a proven track record of organizing workshops and seminars to empower family businesses. Ria is also a member of she serves as a chair of the Family Business Association of the Caribbean and vice chair of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. She's a certified trust and estate practitioner with the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners. Ria has an extensive qualification and practical experience, and she makes her a prominent figure and well suited to lead us here in this discussion today. So we are honored to have you on set, Ms. Ria.
Thank you very much, Priscilla.
So, without further ado, I'd like us to dive right into this dialogue as we celebrate Global Entrepreneurship Week. Now, just to the listening, to the viewing audience, our live is going to be separated into three main segments. So, segment one, we're going to talk about family business dynamics, and most of our questions we will direct them to Mr. Hamid. Secondly, our second segment, we're going to talk about the challenges that among family businesses. And thirdly, we also going to give you, the audience, an opportunity to ask the questions that you may have. So, how does that sound? Yeah,
Sounds
let's
good.
dive into
Yes.
it. All right. So, let me first begin, Sajjad. I'm going to pose a very pertinent question and to clarify for our audience. Tell me, what is a family business? And also, why are they so important?
Right. When I was asked to teach family business going back about a decade, right? I thought this was an odd subject. I mean, why teach family business? It's a business, right? So when I dived in into the text and I started doing my research to teach the class, I realized family businesses are actually very different from non-family businesses, and therefore they should be managed differently. Now, I like to say family businesses is in the blind spot in management education. So most people who do a bachelor's or a master's may not even in management. You may not touch on what a family business is or what family business are about. So what is a family business? I would say if you approach it from an academic point of view, the field of family business has not really decided clearly what the definition is, but we have some smoking guns that we could point to, right? So, one is that family businesses tend to be owned substantially by the family itself. It doesn't have to be 100%, it does not be 50%. But the one that I work with is they must own at least 15% of the shareholding of the company, right? So it could be a very large company, like Ansa Makal, for example, is a family business in based on my definition. And I don't know what the family owns, but it certainly don't own 100% of the business. It's listed on the stock exchange, right? Secondly, is that the family must have some influence on the board, the strategic direction of the company, and also they sometimes find themselves in the management of the company, right? Another thing that distinguishes a family business from non-family businesses is that they have the continuity element in it. So they want this business to continue to the next generations, plural, right? And we're talking about legacy here. So, for instance, if you work for a company, the best they could do is probably name the building after you, or maybe the door. But if somebody, a few years down the road, remove the door, maybe it have termites or something, there goes your legacy. But a
Right.
family business, what you're doing is that not only you're passing on your name, you're also kind of like passing on your business genes.
Wow.
Not your biological genes, of
Right.
course. You pass on your business genes to the next generation. They will continue, and of course, they'll have employment and income and that sort of thing. So that is basically what a family business is.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, I guess from your talk, what you mentioned and what stood out to me is that within a family firm, there are going to be members of the same family,
Mhm.
right? And would be participating in. They may play a management role. They may be part of decision making,
Mhm.
as well as they can even serve in a rank and file
Mhm.
level as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, it depends on what kind of family business it is.
Right.
There are basically three types of family business. There's the family first business, which means that the family members get the plump job. So they may start in your come fresh out of university, they put you in a management position. But if it's a management first family business, they will say, hey, you know what, you need experience. Maybe you could start lower down, I'll work your way up.
Right.
right? So it depends. So you might find them, depending on the type of organization, you may find them in all levels. Of course, as the family business starts to grow, you kind of run out of family to put into positions. So then the family has to decide, how can we deal with how can we bring in non-family members into management?
Right. There's something also that you mentioned that also stood out to me. The fact that one of the distinctions between a family firm and a non-family firm is that commitment to that long-term orientation, that
Mm,
stewardship,
mm,
that legacy preservation, which might be the one thing that can lead to their transgenerational growth.
mhm,
Because let's say that you're a non-family firm and there's no commitment, there's nothing to say, well, I have to I don't know, keep within the wishes of my parents and so on. So it would be easier for you to jump ship and
mhm.
probably work for another company where you think the grass might be greener.
Right.
But within a family firm, because there's that intrinsic motivation where you want to be part of this name, you want to
Mm,
see your name,
right.
to be known, that reputation, maybe
Right.
to be recognized, I
Right.
think would give them, it would be a sort of a family capital, a
Mhm,
capital that non family firms may have.
right.
But I would like to ask further, are there any other distinctions that you would like us to like to share about family firms?
Right. Right. So you mentioned it there, that family businesses, there's like a brand name attached to it. So let's say you're proud. Let's say you're working for Bhagwan Singh's, or you're working for SM Jalil. There's a there's a family name that you want to support over the years because you are part of that family, and that's the distinction. And you put it nicely, better than I did. So so they want to continue this brand name, and they want to be proud of this brand name. Like, I own Puff and Stuff or something like that, right? So you're right about that, right? Now,
Right.
one thing I didn't mention, I should have mentioned this, is that the Family Firm Institute um, estimates that between 50 and 80% of all businesses globally are family businesses. So you could find them
Wow.
like Ansa Makala, as I mentioned, SM Jalil, the associated brands, Walmart, Ford Motor Company, even it's very likely your mini mart, maybe a doubles man, right? All those are family businesses,
Right.
right? So they are all nook and cranny in society, even on the stock exchange too.
And you mentioned to me earlier on about ultra wealthy. What
Right,
is the what is that prominent thing about family business and being ultra wealthy?
right,
Is there a correlation?
right. So we have this thing, and I wouldn't use the common term, but there is a group of people who have the most wealth in our country. We call them the ultra wealthy, right?
Right.
People call them outside something else, but we wouldn't talk about that. And we tend to, it's a myth that we believe a certain ethnic group holds the wealth in a country. So let me call some names that will smash that myth. So people who own SM Jalil, people who own Bhagwan Singh, people who own Langston Roach, that's the personal care products that you use. Um, then you have associate brand Arthur Lockjack. So all these names from diverse backgrounds, but they all have one thing in common. They all have family businesses. And it seems as though family businesses could create an extreme amount of wealth. So maybe, Priscilla, maybe in your program, you might want to introduce family business.
Yes, yes, definitely. Especially as we you mentioned, our local brands right here,
Mm-hmm.
Langston Roach,
Mm-hmm.
Bagwan Sings, and so on,
Mm-hmm.
prominent members in the
Right,
business community that
right,
their very names
right,
tells us that they are family
right,
firms.
right. I know in the agricultural area. So one of the ultra wealthy people, the Nutrimix group of companies. I remember doing some work for them some time back, right?
Right.
The founder was Shahid Mohammed. He passed away now, and there's a huge company. They're in poultry and hatchery and processing plant for the birds and that sort of thing. So even in agriculture, you have a lot of family firms in there.
Right. And do you think, apart from that element in terms of, that family bond that goes with what makes a family business, are there any other elements that you think contributes to their success? Is it just that entire whole family bond, or is it that there are other general business elements that contribute to their success?
Right. I think if we had to put one word to describe family business and their success, is that the successful ones are entrepreneurial. Now, normally a business will have maybe a solopreneur, one person who is an entrepreneur and you have hired people who are non-entrepreneurs. But in a family business, what you have is that you have what I would call collective entrepreneurial intelligence, meaning that everybody thinks like an entrepreneur. Now, the next generation obviously will have gotten it from their parents. Maybe that they dinner table and they eat in there, whatever they eat in. And, you say, Johnny, what do you think? I want to buy this piece of land along the road. What do you think? You know what I should do? Or you ask Mary, what do you want to do? That sort of thing. So I think the one thing is that the entrepreneurial culture that they have that non-family business may not have, because when you hire a manager, that manager in a non-family business may know how to do business plans and all that sort of thing, but they may not have that entrepreneurial spirit in them. So that's the one thing that I think separates a family business and gives them that turbocharges their business. They can grow faster, and the research shows that family business earn a higher rate of return than non-family businesses.
Wow, that's interesting. Sajjad, you've touched on some very important points for us. At this stage, we now understand what exactly is a family business, what makes them so successful, what differentiates them from a non family firm. But now we would like to start going into the dark side of it. We're into the challenges. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. We're going to take a short break. And then when we come back, we are going to invite Ria to speak about the legal hurdles that she sees on a day to day basis as it relates to family firms. So, be right back in a moment.
Are you ready to unlock the endless possibilities of education? Introducing Settlinks, your gateway to a world of teaching innovation and creativity.
Welcome back to Navigating Complexities in Family Business as we are celebrating Global Entrepreneurship Week 2023. So we are about to jump into segment 2 and we're going to discuss the challenges that among family businesses. So Ria, by this token, I have to ask, what are some of the challenges that you commonly see in family business?
Well, Priscilla, typically I see 4 areas of challenges in family businesses. And the first, and perhaps arguably the most crucial, is succession. And when I say succession, I mean transfer of ownership of assets, whether those assets are personal assets or the business assets, as well as that transfer of leadership of the business. The second area that I tend to see is in governance, both in terms of corporate governance and family governance structures. What are the frameworks that are in place for effective decision making, both for the family and for the business? Right. The third area is in conflict management. and the family business system inherently has conflict. What is the best structure and strategies in place for us to manage the conflict when it arises? Not if, but when it arises. And the final area that I see is in terms of financing. How do we finance the growth and expansion of our family business? What is the right financial strategy that we are going to put in place to allow for this growth? So, those would typically be the four areas of challenges that I see.
That is quite intriguing, especially how those challenges that you've mentioned are differentiated by those of the challenges that we see in terms of general entrepreneurship or non family firm entrepreneurship, excepting the last one, which is lack of finance.
Yeah.
In fact, in the extant literature, you'd realize that some of the main barriers in entrepreneurship include lack of finance slash capital, you've got market competition, and thirdly, I'd like to talk about mindset blocks. Now, mindset blocks talks about the psychological domain in each individual. I'd like to highlight a study that was recently published by one of my colleagues, Dr. Abede Mak. He's at the McMaster University, and his paper just came out in the Entrepreneurship Education and Pedagogy Journal. And he looked at something called the entrepreneurial self efficacy right here in the Caribbean, right? Now, for those of you who are wondering what entrepreneurial self efficacy is, it is basically a person's belief that they can perform entrepreneurial activities and tasks, and if they possess that efficacy according to the theory of planned behavior, it will feed into their entrepreneurial intentions and ultimately their success into entrepreneurship. Now, here's the notable thing about his study. He looked at some independent variables, right? One of that was basically family business or any prior exposure to family business. And he saw, notably, that the students that had a high efficacy, self efficacy, were those who had family members that owned businesses prior. And I found that to be very intriguing. And it speaks to the fact that when we talk about challenges and we understand why are some persons feel that they're outsiders, why can't I be like that? Why do I possess those mindset blocks? It's not just genetics. It could be the environment that you're exposed to. Sajjad, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Can you share with us, are there any other challenges that you
Right.
see facing family firms?
Well, thanks, Priscilla, for talking about that journal article. Lucky thing I came here. So I would not have known about that. All right, I'm glad you mentioned that in the families. They talk at the dinner table. So the entrepreneurship education starts at an early age, right? And and I agree with you that it's not the genes. I mean, the only way to correct if you have a 40 gene, there's no gene for entrepreneurship. Maybe for risk taking, but not for entrepreneurship. Is that you might have to choose your parents differently, and I don't know if you could do that, right? So so Ria is on the ball. She talks about succession, right? And she talks about ownership. But there's another dimension about succession, not only transfer of ownership, which, I mean, a lawyer, accountant could do. That shouldn't, and as you start fighting, then you can't do your paperwork, right? But there's also the transfer of management. So the transfer of management, to me, that's 80% of what you have to do. Maybe the transfer of ownership might be 20%, right? So she's right about the succession, the governance, the conflict. And she talked about financing for growth. But there's one area that is very important and that I think is important is family business sometimes lacks strategic planning. If you don't have strategic planning, or if it's a smaller business, maybe a business plan, you need to know how to deal with all these issues. Because if the founder or the CEO dies, you must have something that you could proceed with. You have a plan already. If you don't, well, that could lead you into trouble. So I think I will only add
But why is that? Why do they lack strategic planning?
right. Depends how the size of the business, but a lot of times they don't because the business starts off informally and it is not as professional because you have family members there. You take money out of the drawer, no problem, whatever. Your son want a Mustang, you buy it for him. Your daughter want to go to Disney, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that lack of informality means that they don't focus too much on planning.
Yeah.
right?
Often see sometimes anecdotally, I've been speaking with members from the business community, and what I've seen is that sometimes you may have families that are stuck in their own traditional ways. So you may
Mm,
have the CEO who has been serving in that role for many, many years up to retirement and beyond. And I mean, I can recall of a vivid example where his son, who ultimately was the person to take over the business, was just begging his dad, hey, let's just
mm,
try to
mm,
transition from postmail to email. And he
mm,
just did not want to do that because he's not,
mhm.
maybe familiar with that method of communication.
Right,
And it was just that it was just a challenge. It was a
right.
challenge.
We call that a monarch style, right?
Monarchy,
Right,
right.
right, because they want to die with their crowns on their head. When in politics, they want to die with their boots on,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So, Ria, you've mentioned succession,
Yes.
right? And that seems to be a big thing when talking about family business. So,
Absolutely.
I want you to broaden our understanding on what really it is and why is it such a major challenge?
So when we think of the objective behind succession, it is the desire to ensure that there is a transfer of wealth from one generation to the next while ensuring family harmony and as well as ensuring that the business survives that transition. Now, when we're talking about the wealth of a family business that is to be transferred, yes, certainly we are talking about the financial capital, both in terms of shares, land, cash, but we're also looking at that human and intellectual capital. We're looking at the social connections. We are looking at that legacy that is to be transferred to the next generation. And that could include the spiritual values or the value system to be transferred to the next generation as well. So, what exactly is required for that very intricate intergenerational transfer is that both the family and the business has to take responsibility to set up the structures that will facilitate that sort of succession, that to make their succession successful.
Right.
So, what that requires is a long term vision, a plan of action, taking a proactive stance. However, what I tend to see though is more of a reactive stance. And sometimes it comes up when there is an event, perhaps the death of a matriarch or patriarch that's sudden. That is when the families would tend to use more of a reactive approach. And for me, going into a family business like that, it is more, my role has become more of a chaos manager in a polycrisis because there's so many different issues going on in the family structure, in the business structure, in the ownership structure, that it's all about managing all of these issues that arise.
Right.
So I think that what is required is to adopt that proactive approach. You have put the time, energy, and effort into building the business. Put the time, energy, and effort into securing the legacy and securing the wealth so that it could be passed on to future generations.
And how exactly can they go about doing that
Yeah.
precise thing?
So there are various strategies that could be put in place. But of course, as Sajjad would know, if you've seen one family business, you've only seen one family business. So the strategies that work for one family will not work for another family. Now, the most common estate planning tool that we see is, of course, the last will and testament. And it's a classic, but having a last will and testament for a family that wishes to build a legacy throughout generations, that last will and testament as the only tool may not be sufficient. Because certainly having only a will in place does not prevent the collapse of a family business. It does not prevent a beneficiary from squandering the family's wealth. It does not prevent the assets from being dissipated if an owner or a beneficiary gets divorced. So, other strategies would need to be put in place to support that. So, for instance, a family may wish to set up a trust. So that way they can control and customize how the wealth is to be distributed over the next generation. In fact, over several generations. And when it comes to the business succession part of things, a tip is that you have to ensure that your probate world aligns with your corporate world. So that would mean bringing in strategies like a buy-sell agreement, and that is a legal document. And that sets out what happens to the shares of an owner if it is they pass away or if it is perhaps they go through a major life event like a divorce. But I think one of the unsung heroes of the of having a successful succession is really the family governance structures, like setting up a family constitution and having family forums like a family assembly and a family council. So the family constitution is really a document that sets out how the family is going to make decisions based as a cohesive unit. So they will decide what their roles are, what their responsibilities are, what their vision is. And Sajjad would have touched on a few of the items, the policies and the frameworks that would go in or that form part of the family constitution. So for instance, it could entail having a family employment policy. So is it that we, our family members, are employed based on their last name? Or is it that family members are employed based on merit, that they have the necessary experience and qualifications for the job? Another important policy to include in the family constitution
Keep what in laws.
would be
Keep what in laws.
keep it
Keep what in laws.
would be things like the dividend and reinvestment policy. Again, we would have touched on that earlier. And that, I think, becomes very important where you have owners that work in the business and owners that do not work in the business, because they're very different perspectives. I may be an owner who does not work in the business, and one of my perspectives would be, what will be my dividends? But an owner that works in the business, their perspective is, this cash is going to be reinvested back into the business. So it's important as the family and business grows to set up these types of structures as well. And in terms of the family forum, the family council and the family assembly, think of it as an enhanced family meeting. So that is where...
Like with some structure.
Yes, with some structure, exactly. So it can be a facilitated conversation among the family members where they discuss the vision, they discuss what their roles and responsibilities are, and it's done in a very safe and open forum. So it's not about criticizing the individual or anything like that. It's nothing like that. It is a safe and open forum where family matters, business matters are discussed. So it's a business meeting, but family style. So when we're looking at family governance structures to assist the succession process, you can think about it as a family headquarters for information and strategy to be shared amongst the family. So I think those really are that's just a few of the strategies that could be used by family-owned businesses for a successful succession to occur across generations.
Wow, you have touched on some very interesting points. We started talking about succession, and as we go deeper into the layers, I'm hearing estate planning, I'm hearing wills, I'm hearing family constitution. I mean, it's really complex the more that we get into it. Okay, so at this stage, I'd like us to take a short break because we would like to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions that they may have. So let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
Unveiling a new dawn, the Caribbean Teaching Scholar Journal is back, stronger, and more relevant than ever. We're opening the floor to fresh insights on post-pandemic challenges and opportunities in higher education. We're keen to explore contemporary approaches to assessments, the well-being of higher education stakeholders, innovations in teaching and learning, and how we can further leverage post-pandemic technologies. The deadline to submit your groundbreaking research is November 30th, 2023. Not only will your work be published in our December 2024 issue, but you'll also have the chance to feature on our Research in Action podcast series. So seize this opportunity to shape the future of Caribbean higher education.
And we are back live here from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. We are discussing family businesses and we are celebrating Global Entrepreneurship Week. We have a live studio audience and they have some burning questions that they would like to ask our esteemed speakers. So we're going to give them an opportunity to ask those questions now.
Hi. So, one of my questions is, what strategies can families employ to manage conflicts and maintain a healthy work-family balance within the business?
So I can assist with that question. So some of these strategies are actually very basic strategies that we use on a day-to-day basis to manage disputes. And it is something that occurs in our everyday life, whether it is our personal relationships, business relationships, family relationships. So it could be as simple as active listening, right? Being open to listening to what the other person is saying in a non-judgmental way. So, of course, that is something that should work both ways. Practice good communication hygiene, for instance. So, speak without any sort of harsh language, any obscene language. So those are some of just be respectful in your communication. And as I said, that is something that really works both ways. And I think that by doing so, and once the family gets on board with that way of communicating with each other, and that is an expectation that the family has among the family members as well as in the business, that helps.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I just want to add, conflicts tend to be about three things. One is that is a personality problem. You just don't like the person head, as we say, right? Two is that sometimes we have a conflict that arises in terms of the process of how it's going to be done, right? And the third one is sometimes we have a conflict with the goal in mind. So we don't like the goal. Maybe the goal is to make an investment here and we don't like that. Now, conflict is actually not so bad as long as it is constructive conflict, because conflict means people can air their opinions. In the absence of conflict, I think you have a bigger problem because people are not going to speak out, right?
Right. Okay. So we would like to take our second question.
Hi, good day. I was wondering what strategies can family businesses use to adapt to the changing market conditions and industry trends?
I think Sajjad.
Right. So that's more of a management
That's
management.
for
That's a
Sajjad.
very good question
Mhm.
because family businesses face the same set of changes that non-family business face. Now, some of the things that family business do, they do things like this: is that when they encounter change, may say it's a declining market, what they would do is that they would sell off non-productive assets and put it into more productive assets. Another thing they tend to do is that they tend to overinvest in good times. So when bad time comes, let's say a change in the market, they are prepared for that. Of course, they're entrepreneurial. So what they do is that when the change is taking place, they probably be the first to see, and they will tend to make the changes internally. So they prepare themselves ahead of time. All right.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. Do you want to add anything or
No,
take?
I would leave the management part of things to Sajjad.
Okay. Can we have a third question posed to our guest?
Sure, and anyone could take this question, and this is in terms of succession and conflict. But how do family businesses, especially in this modern era, handle the conversations around nepotism? Because we know that's a really big thing now. Everyone talks about how persons have all these family connections to these big businesses. How do you handle nepotism in its role and in conversations? Because they're really not that great. People say that it's unfair. So, how do you handle addressing nepotism, especially in a family business aspect?
I think that in a family business, it is expected that nepotism. Um, However, it is up to the family to determine whether we are a family first business or we are a business first business. So that again, and Sajid and I would have touched on that earlier, the example with the family employment policy, for instance. Um, are we a family first type of structure so that we would give or even create a job post for a family member because of their last name? Or is it that we are a business type of organization where we are going to determine that family members must come in with the appropriate level of experience and qualifications? Now, of course, for a family business, that is going to be a challenge. So, a good starting point is how do we manage that paradox? How do we be a family business type of organization? And that really comes down to, and it's a word that you would have mentioned, conversation. Really is talking about it openly, having that succession conversation. And yes, it can be a very awkward conversation to have because we are talking about wealth and assets, and which are still very much so a taboo conversation to have with parents and so on. But nevertheless, the awkwardness that you may experience while the matriarch and patriarch are around is nothing compared to the chaos that could erupt after they are no longer here. So have the conversation openly and frankly.
Right,
Wow.
right. I just wanted to add, a student came to me, no, Ria, you're an attorney, right? And they showed me a law, employment law, that says that nepotism is allowed in a family business. Now, I can't remember the section, subsection, whatever it is called, those things, right? So apparently it is allowed under law. No, but even if it's allowed under law, as your family business starts to grow, what could happen is that if the non-family members who are qualified can't move up, it's like a different glass ceiling, right? That applies to everybody. You have a choice you have to make. You have to make sure you give them positions that so you can attract those people as the business can't grow anymore, because how much family you're going to have, right, in the business.
Exactly.
Mm.
And that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation. So these issues can be brought up. Some persons, they would like to bring it up and don't even know how. And they
Mm.
can point this YouTube conversation to their mom, their dad, and say, hey, this is something I've been thinking about, and strike that conversation. For the interest of time, we would have to take one more question from our audience.
Good morning. So my question pertains to NIS, National Insurance. So someone who is directly involved in the business, right? Let's say they do delivery or sales or even packing the shelf, right? Um, can the business pay their NIS, or does the business have to, or is it optional?
Well, I
Y-
think it would really depend on the working relationship or the
mhm.
contractual agreement between the employee or the contract worker or the person that is carrying out a particular service for the organization. So that is very very specific to the contractual agreement.
And I guess that is not acute only for family firms, that would be
Correct.
general.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay, guys. Well, we have covered some important ground and we have just begun to skim the surface in terms of, all of the complexities and elements that are involved in family business. But the good news is that we can learn more about family businesses because our two speakers are actually authors of their own books. And I'm going to give them an opportunity to share with you more about their books, at what level it's pitched, and what questions that you may find answers for in these books. So, who is going to go first?
Where you go?
Ladies first. Okay.
Right.
All right. So this is my book, The Seven Domains of the Family Business, The Journey to a Multi-Generational Legacy. And we would have actually touched on some points that are in the book. Now, it's about seven domains or seven events that every family business will go through when it is preparing to build that multi-generational legacy. So, in terms of estate planning, succession of leadership, governance structures, conflict management, as well as our own personal well being as well. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of the family business. So this is really, it was developed for us as an advisor on a bookshelf, so to speak, so that it really is a starting point to succession, governance, and really building that legacy towards a multi-generational family business. And it is actually available on Amazon, both in ebook and print, as well as at the Metropolitan Bookstore on our Peter Avenue in Woodbrook, and of course through me, so that my contact information, I'm sure, will be shared, and persons can reach out to me directly to secure a copy of the book.
I hope I can get my copy signed by the author herself.
Right. So my book is called Build Your Legacy Business, Solopreneur to Family Business Hero, right? So actually, I had to play around before I figure out that name, right? So what I was looking for when you're writing a book, of course, there are millions of books out there, right? So first I check Amazon, which has 80% of the book market, right? So I see there are books, a lot of books on entrepreneurship. So I say I ain't going there, even though I teach entrepreneurship. And then I have some books on family business. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take a different thing. I'm going to combine both fields of entrepreneurship and family. So I start off, I have five, not five domains, but I have five areas in my book. One is I deal with the entrepreneurial mindset. And most people start without that mindset and they fail. And the second one is I have is start your business. The third section I have grow your business. And then when you have done that, a lot of times people now saying, where's my family? Do I bring them in? So the fourth and the fifth parts of the book is start your family business, follows afterwards, and then continue or grow your family business in the last part of it. So it's a unique book. And I believe in Trinidad, probably just like Ria's book, I don't think there's any book like this locally in Trinidad, right?
Correct. That's
Yes.
correct.
I would like to add that in the academic community, because family business has gotten so important, it has been a fairly growing stream in the research. There actually are academic journals dedicated to
Right,
family business now,
right. Yeah,
so that you can conduct your empirical studies and get them published there as well.
yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
Family Firm Review, right?
Yeah.
The Family Business Review.
Family Business Review
Yeah.
is one of them.
Yeah. I must say that our conversation today has been very informative. And thank you all both for coming, taking time out of your busy schedule, and really sharing the wealth of knowledge and experience that goes behind your titles, your credentials, and everything that you have had, that you have participated in. Now, are there any key takeaways or any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, I think plan. Be a proactive planner. In order for you to have that legacy, it requires that time and that vision and that forethought. And what that requires you to be is to take responsibility to be a proactive planner.
Any
Right.
final?
So I would say that let's say you're enjoying cubicle life in a corporation, right? And you're getting tired of the boss and all that kind of thing. Look at your family as a resource. Maybe you could talk to your spouse, your kids, and say, you know something, let's start a business, right? And I think if you do that, you'll realize that there's a lot of happiness that goes with a family that works together.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. So that brings us to the end of our dialogue. But before we wrap up, I would like to first again extend a heartfelt thank you both for coming and sharing with us your knowledge. I would also thank all of those who pitched in to make this event successful. I'd like to highlight Settle for the use of their studio. I'd like to highlight Mastech Studios for the nice introduction that we got. I'd like to also thank the Department of Agriculture and Economics and Extension for the support. We are tremendously grateful. And by that token, I bring our GEW celebration to a close. Thank you.